Hi guys, so I just picked up another 3DS. This is a 3DS XL, and according to the seller, it should just have a cracked screen, and also there is some damage to the housing in the hinge area. So I'm gonna see about that and probably replace part of the housing as well. Let's check it out. Okay, there it is. So, this is the Pikachu edition 3DS XL, and I think I paid around €45 for this. Yeah, and as you can see, the hinge is a bit cracked right here. I'll zoom in. So, the hinge is a bit cracked around here, and also it's pretty obvious that the screen is cracked. Yeah, let's turn it on. So the screen is definitely cracked. I'm gonna have to replace that. Also, the touch screen is pretty scratched up. I don't know if you can tell, but yeah, there. So I might replace that as well. And I'll probably also replace the analog stick because that just makes it look much nicer. Other than that, looks like everything's working fine. Yeah, so 3D also working fine. Let's start working. So I'll just start taking this apart, and the bottom section is relatively easy. So just taking off the housing around here and then getting all the motherboard taken out. Some guides on iFixit, they're pretty good and show the bottom half. But then when I get to the top screen and replacing that, I'll show you that in detail because there's not much information about that. Okay, so getting up to this point should be relatively easy. It's just following the iFixit guide, taking out all the screws, removing the ribbon cables, and then taking out the motherboard. But now is where it gets a bit more difficult. So this is the part where we get to removing the top half, the screen, and then replacing that inside there. So the first step is to remove these rubber screw covers around here. And now we need to start taking these screws out. Okay. Now just close it up, and then to get this top housing part off, you need to slide it downwards and then kind of pull up. So I'll just push it down, just like that, just a tiny bit, see that right there? And then you can start pulling up. There we go. Okay, now we need to push that hinge piece out, but it only works if you've folded the 3DS open into this position. So not fully extended, but that click right before. And now we're able to push out that hinge piece inside here, which is relatively easy. You just need to get some really thin tweezers or a screwdriver or something, and then it's a bit difficult to see, but this white piece inside here, you need to get behind that, and then just like that, and then start prying downwards. Just keep going, and as you can see right here, the hinge is slowly coming out. There. And then once you've pressed hard enough, the hinge will be all loose, just like that. And now you can remove this plastic part in here, as well as the LED diffuser in there, and then you'll be left with the bottom half disconnected from the top half. Now to disconnect the other side, we need to remove this Wi-Fi cable So first, disconnect it from the Wi-Fi chip, pull up on the cable. Now we need to start threading these ribbon cables through the housing part. So just thread these through that little cutout. And then you can pull up and out. And now just make sure to be careful with that green Wi-Fi cable, and now you've disconnected both halves. As you saw, I like to remove this fabric stuff between the speaker and the housing just to not lose them, because they're probably going to fall out at some point, so I'll just take them out beforehand. Now we can start flipping this all the way over so we can thread out the screen and then plug in the new one. So just lift up on all these ribbon cables, they're kind of stuck down. Also, you can already disconnect these two ribbon cables right here. Just lift them up, pull them out, and also remove this tiny screw. Now that I've folded over both of these ribbon cables, the camera and the speaker cable, now I can start by pushing up on the screen from the inside. So I just press right there, right along the entire housing, carefully. And there it is, now it's loose. So just lift that up. Now we have some space right here to take out this green antenna cable. And now comes the slightly difficult part where most people mess up. So be super careful right here. This is your practice round because the screen is broken. I don't need to save this ribbon cable. So if I rip it, it's no problem. But be careful, try to keep it intact, because when you put in the new cable, the new screen, that's going to be super important. You don't want to rip that one. So use this as your practice for the for when you need to thread in the actual cable. So to do that, just start by rolling up this cable carefully. You can use some tweezers. And just stick that through. I'll show you a bit closer. Now just carefully pull that tiny ribbon cable through. There. If it does get stuck inside there, be super careful. Don't pull on it. Just make sure that nothing's binding on anything else. If you're getting stuck somewhere, just start over, take your time, make sure it's goes through there smoothly. It shouldn't take any force at all. Just make sure that the screen doesn't stick on all these cables down here. That happens pretty often. And also just make sure that it's rolled up nicely and threads through there. Okay, now I've got my new screen right here. And now we need to start moving over all these parts over onto the new screen. So we need to keep that this sticky I don't know, rubber gasket or something. Put that on the new screen, and also put the screen lens on the new screen. So I'm gonna grab a new screen lens because this one's scratched up pretty heavily, just to make that look new. So I have my new screen lens right here ready. So now I'm gonna pry up on this old screen lens. I'm I'm not going to need this. You might still need this. Just make sure you don't get any fingerprints on this side. But other than that, it's super easy. But because I'm replacing mine, I don't need that anymore. I just need this adhesive right around here. Now that I've got that adhesive on my new screen, I'll peel up on this protective film on the screen and install my new screen lens, or in your case you'll just reuse your old screen lens. And to get the alignment perfect, I like to drop in the screen right through here and then stick my screen lens on from this side. Now it's time to thread in that new ribbon cable, the new screen. So just like before, make sure your green antenna cable isn't threaded through the hole. And now you can take your screen, and I like to do it this way around. Just roll it up. Just like that. And then thread it through. Okay, once you've gotten it through that first bit, you can take some tweezers and then pull on the ribbon cable. Just like that, and it should go through without any resistance. So make sure that it goes through really easily. And if it just slides through smoothly, then everything's fine. If it gets stuck somewhere, check where it's getting stuck and make sure that that it goes through smoothly, or you might rip your ribbon cable. And now I'll just take that antenna cable again and thread that through, and make sure that it's inside this channel all the way, just like that. And now I can fold over my screen, put it back in place, and then also fold over the camera ribbon cable, make sure that's seated nicely, as well as this speaker ribbon cable. Okay, so now I have that screw installed. Also, I have these two ribbon cables connected and laid out everything just as it was before. Okay, now I'm going to swap over all these buttons and stuff like that over to my new housing. So here's my new housing. It doesn't have that crack in the side like this one. So I'm going to replace that. So now everything's swapped over. I have my new touchscreen in there just to make everything look nice, and also the new analog stick. So that's looking good. And now we can put these halves back together. So the first step is just basically everything in reverse order. So just thread that green cable through. And then take these ribbon cables and thread them through this tiny gap. And now just thread everything through and then kind of press in to get that silver piece in there. And while you're doing that, again, make sure that everything goes in there smoothly. It shouldn't get stuck on anything. There you don't need to use any pressure at all. If you're using pressure, you're probably breaking something. So be super careful with that. And this part, to get the hinge part over the actual hinge, you need to kind of bend the housing a tiny bit like that, and then you can slide it over. And now it's sort of connected, but to connect it completely, we need to add this LED diffuser back in, and also the black plastic part. Push that in, and now we need to press this hinge part back into the housing, so in this direction. And to do that, again, open it up to about this angle, so the not entirely open, but almost open, that middle part. And now take some tweezers or something and just start pushing on that hinge. And you can also give this half a bit of a wiggle to make it go in all the way. Okay, that's how it's supposed to look like. So it's supposed to go in all the way. And so just like that. And also have this piece all assembled, and now the hinge snaps in place again. Now to finish this top half up, to make sure nothing, because these ribbon cables are all loose, we're gonna put this top cover back on, but before that I need to put my 3D slider back into place, make sure it slides fine all the way, so mine does. And also take these foam spacers and the fabric and put them underneath the speakers again. Okay, now to put back this front cover, just like before, we need to, because before we slid it in this direction, again we need to pop it on while it's right here. Also make sure you don't lose your LED diffuser in here, right there. So just pop it in this position and then slide it down. And also make sure all your edges are fine. See, mine's not. Just slide it up a tiny bit and then slide it back down. There. And on the other side as well, slide it up and down, and it should all just snap in place, just like that. And now to put everything back together, it's relatively easy. Just follow the iFixit guide and just reinstall all the ribbon cables, all these tiny parts, the Wi-Fi chip, and reinstall the screws, and I'll show you when everything's put back together. There we go. So everything's put back together and looks like it's working fine. Okay, and now I'm just gonna clean this up a bit more. I usually use a toothbrush and also use some screen cleaner. I like that more because it doesn't leave any streaks like rubbing alcohol does, and I find it cleans just as well if you use an old toothbrush and really get in those tiny edges. Also get like inside this writing, there's a little bit of dirt. I'm gonna get all that out and make it look nice. Also, I still need to reinstall these 4 screws, put back the screw covers, and yeah, that'll be it. So I'm just gonna do that real quick and then show you when everything's done. Okay, there we go. So it's all back together and it is looking pretty nice. So there are some light scratches on the outside. They're not that bad. Looks pretty nice. And on the inside looks really nice with those new screens. Doesn't have any scratches, and that new analog stick looks really good. So now everything's working fine. Looks pretty good. So I just need to take some photos, reset it, and then I can list it on eBay, and I'll update you guys how much money I made.